Lizzie Borden took an axe. You've all heard the stories, rhymes, and riddles that have haunted the United States for over a century. It's been a case that has been opened and closed about 14 times, and still nobody has come to a verdict. Today, my group and I are going through this cold case to decide whether or not she committed the murder. We're going to give you all the information, clues, and context that I can, and you guys can come to your own verdict on what happened this one hot August morning. Lizzie Borden was born in 1860 in July from Andrew and Sarah Borden. Sarah died after birth, and Andrew remarried to Abby Borden 3 years later. Abby wasn't really recognized as a mother figure from both Lizzie and Emma Borden. They actually referred to her as Mrs. Borden and never really had an emotional connection. As the years went by, they started to realize that Abby was only with Andrew for the money. And her family was there for real estate and manufacturing, which was the fields of Andrew Borden's work process. Andrew Borden worked in the fields of manufacturing and real estate, so Abby herself tried to help out with Lizzie and Emma's jobs in selling houses. But Emma and Lizzie never liked that, so they always gave her the cold shoulder and sold houses under their nose. As we move on to the murders that shook history. Abby was found upstairs, hit over the head as she was making the bed in the upstairs bedroom next to Lizzie's bedroom. Lizzie was actually in the barn at the time, so she didn't actually notice the murders were happening until she walked inside and saw her father on the floor of the living room in a pool of his own blood with his skull cracked in half. She then went upstairs to look and see if she could find Abby, and she found her next to the bed with her skull crushed completely. She actually didn't know who it was and couldn't figure out if it was Abby or the maid because the skull was that out of intact. So Lizzie was charged with double homicide later on and found out that the police didn't even fingerprint test her or the hatchet that was found in the basement of the house. They said the fingerprint testing was new in New England, so they didn't want to test it over here, thinking that it wasn't secure enough. So they released her due to circumstantial evidence, and even though the fact that Lizzie burned her dress several days later after the murder, and she was found buying poison the day before the murders. It was also seen that in the kitchen of the crime, there was 2 sets of tea that were untouched, but Lizzie said that Bridget Sullivan, which was the maid at the time, actually made the tea before he got home. So he actually didn't get the chance to go get the tea before when he sat down on the couch. Lizzie was a part of the church, so she didn't really seem like a woman who would be able to commit these murders since it was such a violent crime. She actually was such a good part of the church that everybody loved her, and seemed as since it was an all-male jury who came to the verdict, said that no woman could have created this murder. As we move on into after the murders, Lizzie and her sister actually bought a house, and they lived there for 10 years. But after those 10 years, Emma actually moved out quite rapidly, and nobody ever knew why. It was speculations that something happened with the murders of their family, but then it was also speculation of Lizzie's close relationship with a woman. She was working. Um, Lizzie worked until the day she died, which actually she worked, but she got a big chunk of money, so she still worked even though she was pretty wealthy thanks to her parents' death. Abby worked every day still in real estate, and she died of pneumonia, and her sister died 3 days later due to kidney inflammation. So I guess you could say their secrets went to the grave. None of their workers who worked in the house, both Lizzie's own house after death in the actual Borden household. Nobody spilled secrets or told about whatever happened in the actual murder house. And Lizzie was reprimanded and even accused of shoplifting in 1897. So, she was never accepted, yet she never moved out, even though her sister left quite rapidly. There are stories that people have spooked her and tried to get her to leave, but they say that her spirit still haunts that place. So people who it's actually turned into a bed and breakfast, so people can stay the night in the Borden household and actually create your own persona of what happened there. As we resurface the history and reopen the murders and navigated her life after death, we've come to the case that the information that we've still obtained is not enough to this day to come to a verdict. So it's up to you, ladies and gentlemen, about me and my case, what I've represented to you, and all the information I've given you. You come to your own verdict of what happened on that hot August morning. Thank you.